Welcome to Brevard News, your home for real news in Brevard County. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to our podcast. This week on our Brevard News, we will cover these subjects: lawsuits. Bobanic is sued over a decision of qualifying candidates for office. Jason Steele is being sued. Also, Tobia under investigation again. The NAACP Hobnob, the YMCA Hobnob, as well as the next planning and zoning meeting by the county on August the 12th. And before we get to all of that, let's look at our quote for the week, and it comes from Jesse Ventura. You remember that guy? He was pretty much an interesting fellow as a former governor of Minnesota, and he says this about government, though. He says, government's role should be only to keep the playing field level and to work hand in hand with business on issues such as employment. But beyond this, to a great extent as possible, it should get out of the way. Actually, he said something a little bit more flavorful than that, but I didn't include that. But that's true, and that's what Ronald Reagan says. It's the job of government to get out of the way. People are very innovative, and they have a lot of great ideas. It's you, the people that are looking at this podcast that have made this country what it is. And that's what Katie believes in, that you are the ones that are the innovators. And this government gets out of the way, boy, the innovation can just take off. Our bad ordinance of the week comes out of the city of Titusville again. And they have this ordinance about the presumption of doing business and what a business is. Why? So they can tax you. And if it moves, tax it. And Titusville says, if it's a business, tax it. Notice their ordinance. For the purpose of this article, any person holding himself out to the public by signed, printed matter or otherwise as being engaged in business or as offering services or property to the public for a consideration shall be considered as engaging in a business, occupation, or profession and shall be liable for the local business tax receipt, therefore, according to the classification of the business advertised as set forth in section 1158. There you go once again. I don't know if you realize it, but you are living in a nanny state, and there is regulation after regulation after regulation. I say go through these regulations and get rid of the majority of them and make life simple for the citizens. It doesn't, and things that don't impede your freedom. This topic, the topics this week, let's start off with the lawsuits. Bobanic is sued over a decision on qualifying candidates for office. Now, we saw this, and this came up earlier this week in the Florida Today, and a lot of information has been around about this. What is happening, Katie, on this issue with the lawsuit of Bobanic?
Right. Well, somebody, I guess, is claiming that some of the paperwork was not correctly filled out for qualifying for some of the candidates running for office, and from my understanding, Mr. Bobanic's office has actually let go the candidate coordinator and has put some other safeguards in place so that something like this can't happen again. And, you know, from what I also understand is that a lot of the things that were missed weren't necessarily disqualifying things on their paperwork. So we'll see what happens with how this affects the upcoming election. But yeah, it's kind of all unfolding right now.
But not the major races, right, Stale?
Right.
I mean, this is not going to affect any of the major races that are coming up, right?
No, not that I know of, and I like to wait until the facts are, out on paper and the courts do their rulings, because a lot of times things can get mixed up, in all of this, and it's just interesting because we're so close to the elections, and there's been, on both sides, you've got Tobia and what's going on with him, and now you've got this Bobanic thing. The voters now have been very confused, I guess, as trying to figure out, well, who do I elect and what is really going on, trying to sift through the information. And so I just suggest that you wait until it goes through the court system and see what the courts rule and go through the facts and read the paperwork.
Well, there's smoke, there's fire. We're going to see that Tobia is under investigation even yet again. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, Jason Steele is being sued on violation of free speech.
Yes.
Right? And this goes back to the infamous. You were there,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
What it was, you shall never forget that.
Oh
What is
yeah.
this about?
So this goes back to the meeting where 4 people were removed from the county commission meeting, and there was a man there who approached the commission, and he spoke he went to go speak, and got cut off during his 3 minutes. And like we said back then, if regardless of what the citizens speak about at the dais, they have the right to speak. And so just let them say their thing and be done, even if you don't agree with it. And what Commissioner Steele has done is he truly did violate, in my opinion, violate First Amendment rights, not only by
You guys called him out that day.
Oh, yes, I did. I
Did
went,
that, right?
right.
yeah,
We were
correct.
we were in the audience saying, you're violating this guy's free speech. What are you doing? And not only did they cut off his time and take his time, but then they threw him out of the meeting. And it was just so wrong. So honestly, I'm glad that this man is standing up for his constitutional rights, and we have to, as citizens, push back against the government when they're being tyrannical.
It's going to take some lawsuits like this in some of the instances, right, Stale, in order to be able to fight back on some of this, right?
Unfortunately, money speaks to these elected officials, and I hate that taxpayer money has to go into defending the people that violated these First Amendment rights. But it is infuriating that I sat in that room in the very front row when this was all occurring, and it
You were
was
trying to hide.
I was. I was. And I may not agree with the subject matter, but they had their 3 minutes. And
Correct.
I was really appalled sitting there watching how they were treating citizens, how they were reacting, how immature they were being behind that. It was just, it was jarring. If you were sitting in that room and you saw how many people they were so easily taking out, it's like they have a disgust for the citizens that they are supposed to work
There were
for.
3 or 4
Oh yeah.
in that meeting alone,
Right.
right? It's guards off with your heads. Get out of here. That's Commissioner Steele who was doing that. Tobia is under investigation again. Where there's smoke, there's fire. This guy, again, he strikes me as someone who really doesn't need to be in office anywhere. He doesn't like people, and you can clearly see that from the county commission. But what is happening here now with this investigation? You want to
So,
start, Cheryl?
247-page FDLE investigation that was released. And I really encourage anyone that is watching this to go look at every detail, because there are so many things in that report that are revealing. You have Tobia in his office with alcohol, his office being used as a storage unit for his personal belongings. You have and he's asking his staff to grade papers because he works at a college, so he's giving them access to his professor profile. Then additional to that, he's asking his staff to pose as Bobanic at one point so he can get intel on Bobanic on his travel expenses. And there has been no accountability for any of this. He's also asking, now this is what's so crazy, do you know what your WebElect score is? Anyone watching this, because Tobia allegedly, through these FDLE investigation papers, he is basing who he's going to help in his district off of those scores.
Wow, unbelievable.
And for people who
This-
don't know what the WebElect score is, there's a software where all the voting data gets compiled for politicians who are running for office, so that they know who to reach out to when they're campaigning. And it doesn't tell you who somebody voted for, but it tells you how often the person votes. Are they voting in the primary? Are they voting only in the general election? So the fact that he's basing his help off of these scores is just so horrible. Because
Some of that is not accurate, right?
right. Yeah.
So I've looked
Yeah.
at my score, and sometimes I look at it, like that can't be accurate.
You know, in that report too, they said that the county attorney was deemed the ethics officer. He is the one that is supposed to be upholding the ethics of the county commission.
It's not.
Oh no.
Right. So just being able to drink all day long in your office, that's totally fine with
And-
the county attorney.
So
You know,
this-
according to him.
This has been consistently a problem here recently, right? So now you have Tobia, and then there was a issue with Rita Pritchett on paper and the misuse of paper back some months ago. And that was brought up, and
I think there was a
she's
citizen that
that brought that up, and she kind of poo-pooed it. But I mean, so there should be some ethics here in terms of how the commissioners are operating and how they're handling the public's money, right? And so Tobia is being accused of really misusing a lot of this, right?
Right.
Okay, so that's another investigation for Tobia, and it's really becoming interesting, and you want to give someone the benefit of the doubt around election. People throw out a lot of things, and I'm always suspect around this time when you have that, right? Still,
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I have that. That's what I was trying to say in the beginning of this is, that I kind of take things, I have to really dissect all of the information and the facts, and I tend to stay really with citing my sources and keeping my opinions at bay until all of the information comes out from both sides. Because I believe there's always like a middle ground, and that's how you can really base your opinion, is not by just one side coming out with their perspective of the situation.
but as we reported last week, it is a fact that Daytona Beach would have prosecuted him, but the term limits had actually passed on that issue, that they were going to, that FDLE had investigated in that particular issue.
And that's similar
So,
to
Lober.
Lober, right?
Correct.
With his investigation and the misspending of tax, and we wonder why trust is eroded here in
Right.
Brevard County.
Well,
Why citizens don't trust our government.
and the problem is that many instances, at least the appearance is that they're living above the people, and that the people, again, they look down on the people with contempt.
Right.
Like, you little miserable people. And you can see that as the people go, and we've gone to the county commission and also the city council of Titusville, and the reactions, it's just contemptible. The NAACP Forum was Thursday night, really turned out to be a pretty good event. Do you guys think you
sure.
were there? What do you think?
So the NAACP, they held an event for the County Commission District 1 candidates. And I'm just so thankful anytime any group puts on one of these events, because it gives us an opportunity to have Q&A sessions with the public, and for the public to see all of us at one time. And it gives them a real look on how we're different, and a look into who we are. And so I thought it was great that people had great questions. There was a great turnout, and it was a really awesome event.
You exposed some information about Jordanville that a lot of people don't know
Right.
what's going on, right?
Right.
And what's happening with that area. Just a little bit about Jordanville.
Sure. So it's this project in Titusville called Titusville Tomorrow, and they're taking this block of streets in the middle of, they call it Canaveral Heights or West Titusville, and basically they're trying to turn it into another downtown, and put up apartments, put up affordable housing,
Affordable housing.
that nobody can afford.
Affordable housing.
And so the trouble there is that there's about 80%, from my understanding, renters in that community. And so now, if they go through with these changes, the developers can come in and offer to buy the properties from these landlords, and then the landlords can get rid of all their tenants and sell out to these developers to put up these apartments that affordable housing that nobody can afford. And so where are all these people going to go? And Titusville already has a horrible homelessness problem.
Right.
It's, really
That's
a
going to make
crisis.
it worse, right, Stell?
Oh, I am worried for this community, and I think the best thing that can happen is that they're informed. And one of my gripes with the city of Titusville and just government in general is they don't really make an effort to educate. Nobody in that room, not one person knew.
Isn't that shocking? And
It
they came up
is.
to you
Right.
afterwards because they had
Oh,
never
yeah.
heard of it before.
Right.
It's really shocking.
That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I was in the neighborhood where it's affecting them. And it's so frustrating, because the city of Titusville had a community meeting about this project, but it was on the same night as the NAACP meeting. So all the people affected were at this NAACP meeting and not at the community, the Titusville community
boy.
meeting. So it's just they want to claim that they are out there trying to inform the public of what they're doing. No. If they really wanted to inform the public, the city would have gone to the NAACP meeting.
Can I just point out that Katie used her ending statement to educate the community on this. Instead of talking about herself, she used that time to tell the community, I need you to know that this is happening.
Which they did not know this. Was there anyone that knew it?
No.
That's so sad. I mean, so here they are. They're sitting here. This is coming down the pike, and they have no clue what's getting ready to happen to them. And it's just so sad.
But the positive thing about it is they are very early in the very early stages of this project. So if the community bands together and organizes, there's a way to push back against this and, maybe not completely stop it, but at least be able to have a seat at the table and have some voice in what this project is going to look like.
Which makes a huge difference if their involvement is there.
Right.
The YMCA last night also had a hobnob, and so it turned out to be a pretty good event, right, Steph?
It was well attended. I really loved the setup. All the candidates in North Brevard were there, and then all of the judges, which I truly needed to talk to each judge because I was still hung up on who am I voting for in the judges race, and I just, for me, that race is really important because of what I went through and the injustice I went through last year. I realized that a judge could forever alter your future with just one decision. And if they would have made the decision and if that judge didn't say, you know what, something doesn't look right here. I want to continue this case so I can look at all the facts and really look through the details of this case. She could have ruled against me in that moment, and I would have never been able to volunteer with children again. I would have had my character completely damaged. So I had really in-depth conversations with each and every judge. And I think it was just, I really encourage all the communities to continue going to these meet and greets and meeting each candidate face to face and asking them the questions and holding them to the fire. Don't be afraid to ask your questions.
Right, you learn a lot. You people who ask you a lot of direct questions, right? I mean, they didn't hold back, right?
Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts about campaigning is getting to talk to people about what their issues are and what my opinions are, and that's one of the most fun things for me is talking to people. But it was just such a great event. All the candidates had to stay at their own tables, and so all the members of the public just came and kind of went table to table, and it was just so great. I really am thankful, like I said before, for any group that is putting these events together because
they did an excellent job.
Oh yeah,
it was really an excellent job, and it was well attended. It
right.
seemed like there's a lot of people there as well. August the 12th is the county commission meeting. It's coming up, and you're having the next planning and zoning for the county commission, and there's a couple of issues that are coming up that really are important on the 12th of August.
So the Sherwood neighborhood, the development that is being proposed, that's going to be on the agenda. And as well, the Hog Valley issue, from what I understand, is also going to be on the agenda. So if you live in either one of those neighborhoods, August the 12th at 3:00 at the county commission meeting or building in Viera is the planning and zoning meeting. And if you would like to speak about this situation, I suggest you come and speak. And if you can't come and speak, then at least send emails to the commission or to the planning and zoning board, because this is definitely going to affect people's lives and their property, and we really need involvement there.
Stale, what do you think as this comes up? Do you think that it's going to matter whether or not the people show up?
Oh man, is that a trick question? Is it? I mean, I don't want to discourage people from showing up. In fact, I always say, like, even if you don't speak, I think people need to be in that room so they can witness what is really happening in that room, and if they're being truly represented, because I think it makes smarter voters when they're actually witnessing what's happening and if they're being represented.
And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let me tell you, I went to a county commission meeting, and you can see the whole. You can't. Television doesn't do it justice. You have to be in that room to see what's happening. And boy, once you see it, you can't unsee it. So this brings us to my 2 cents. My father had an axiom that he lived by, and it's not who's right, it's what's right. And I always try to align myself and my family with people who adhere to that mantra. It's what's right. That's a huge thing. Many of the politicians today are more concerned about who's right than what is right. They care less about what's right. Katie is not that kind of politician. Katie is an old soul. It's unbelievable because she's looked like she grew up in my generation. She is a politician that is truly concerned about what's right, and that's why I like her. Katie has shown herself over the past several years that I've known her to be someone you can count on to cut it straight. If it is against the freedoms of the Brevard residents, Katie is not for it. Because Katie is more concerned about what's right, she can be counted on to fight for we the people in Brevard County. Let's reclaim our community from the establishment cartel, and I don't use that word lightly. It is a cartel of Brevard County. And let's vote for Katie Delaney for County Commissioner District 1. You see, the early voting is coming up, and you have a choice to make as to who's going to be leading you. Do you want someone that's concerned about who's right, or do you want someone that's concerned about what's right? And that's what's missing in our politics today. If you want to change this community, vote for Katie Delaney for County Commission District 1. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you for joining us this week. I hope you have a wonderful week. Be sure to like, share, and to subscribe to our podcast. I think I said that right. My wife keeps telling me I'm saying it wrong. To our podcast. Okay, I got to keep saying it over and over. And we'll see you next week. You have a wonderful, wonderful week.